Everybody, Cobra here with another Global War 2025 video. Now, I've been debating on doing something like a solo game with this because I've just been, aching to play it recently and been doing a lot of modifications and I really want to see it in action. But I do also kind of want to save it for myself and when I play it with a bunch of friends. This is a new game, so I'm coming into it fresh like everybody else. But I just want this to kind of showcase it to some of you, maybe inspire you to do some kind of strategizing and follow along with the couple videos I'll put out, just inspired by Admiral Seabass to put out a couple gameplay videos for some more variation out there, as some people have wanted to see some of that. Like Admiral Seabass, I'm probably not going to be finishing this game, and it may just be this first turn or first two turns, just because I am not expecting to stay around, have this game set up for very much longer, or I might be moving it somewhere else and having an actual live in-person game with a couple friends of mine. So like I said, this is just going to be probably round 1 or 2 of Global War 2025, and I just wanted to mainly use it for myself to kind of show myself how things work, and also some strategies that I've been kind of thinking might be cool to use in this game. So I guess first off, we can get into the different. First up goes the Eastern Pact, and we'll go into their cyber warfare and diplomatic influence roles, and we'll get back at you when we've shown you what's going on with those. See you then. Alright, so after all of the diplomatic influence and cyber warfare roles, not much success was gained. The only thing that happened was that the Caliphate was able to get a military intel point for Israel in hopes to attack it and capture it this first turn. And like I said, nothing else happened. All the diplomacy failed, and nobody else got any other tech. Now, getting into the purchases for all of the different nations. First up, we have China, who has purchased 2 frigates, an airborne, and 5 infantry. My goal is with China is to build up their navy and basically just go like a naval-centric China with this game. Over to Russia. They have a smaller economy than China, so they've purchased 2 infantry, an MBT, and a fighter jet to just help shore up their gains that they'll hopefully make in Europe this turn. And the smallest purchase is from the Caliphate with 4 new infantry and airborne to hopefully threaten some neighboring territories. Alright, so getting into the combat. Let's start out with China, because they are one of the bigger players of this game. So we'll get a nice wide view like that. And China's main goal this first turn, in my opinion, is most importantly to take Japan. I was brainstorming some other options about what they could do, and I think that taking Japan is just a necessity. I mean, I guess you could decide to leave it and maybe hit somewhere else. I think like another main thing that you could do would be to use your fighters to surgically strike Japan, and then maybe try to just take Australia and New Zealand just to take out that kind of stuff. Or maybe launch a first strike on Indonesia. But I'm going to go for Japan because I'm trying to build up my navy, and Japan is worth 5 IPCs. So that is a lot that could help out the Chinese. So I guess first up, all the aircraft from this task force marker are going to go 1 into this C zone. They're going to help the fleet take out the Japanese naval forces, and then they're going to continue on with their movement. So they'll go 1, fight these ships, 2 into Japan, and they'll land on the carrier and LHD, which will have arrived in the C zone. So next up, we'll have this fighter jet here going 1 into this C zone, and it will also continue 2, and then 3, 4, and land in North Korea. this helicopter is going to go 1-2 out into Wake Island to fight the American sub down there and hopefully take it out. The fighter jet in North Korea, which is off the map, is also going to go into the sea zone to help with taking down the Navy. This fighter in Beijing is also going to fly out. And then this LHD is going to take 2 tanks, so it's going to go into the sea zone here, Sea of Japan, pick up 2 MBTs because LHDs can take 2 land units, not just an infantry and an armor class. So 2 MBTs will be our land component, amphibiously assaulting. This drone only has a range of 2, so it's just going to go 1 into this sea zone to help out with the battle here, and you can only use 1 drone marker per combat turn. So he's probably just going to pair up with one of these fighter jets to give him an extra role in combat. And then of course we're bringing in the guided missile destroyer from the task force and the super carrier, and the drone on the super carrier won't be able to participate in combat because only 1 drone can do that per at a time. So also in Beijing, which is called East China on this map, we have 2 airborne which have an air base, so they're going to go 1, 2, and also be landing in Japan to help support those MBTs. Oh, actually, you know, I think that I'm going to take one of these airborne here, and he's going to go 1, 2 to Okinawa to hopefully take that out, because that would be nice to have the whole Sea of Japan neutralized. And with that guy, we're having this helicopter down here in Southeast Asia go 1, 2, 3, land on Okinawa, or not land on Okinawa, but he's going to help out with the fight, and he can land on Okinawa. Helicopters can land and capture territories, but they must have a landing zone available if needed. So basically, my reasoning behind being able to take this helicopter here is that the one from the LHD is going 1, 2, and it'll have 2 movement spaces, so he can go land on land, while the one that has only 1 left could have landed on the LHD, but he'll be, like I said, landing in Okinawa. And that is a little bit dicey of a battle, because if that infantry gets a hit, we'll be taking off, hopefully nothing, but we might have to lose the helicopter if we really hope to take that territory. Alright, nothing will be happening in North Korea, as the demilitarized zone is a very tough nut to crack. And that is all for combat movements. Although, then getting into ordnance, let me grab some of the ordnance on the board, as China does have a lot of it. And they're going to also have the Russians over here in the Pacific help them out. So first off, I guess you can kind of see down off the coast of India, China does have a naval base, and from naval bases they can use their special ability to fire anti-ship ballistic missiles. And since we have 1 naval base, we can fire 1, hoping to maybe pick off something down there in that Indian task force. We'll just place that right there. Next up, for the Battle of Japan, right here, we have 3 naval bases targeting this sea zone, and we'll use 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles, mainly because that submarine I don't think can be hit, and I want to conserve some of them. We have a lot of units that can hit, with us bringing in all those aircraft. Then next up, we've got these 2 submarines which can fire cruise missiles against different ships. Now, this was a dilemma that I thought. So we can either take out this U.S. task force off Hawaii, which would help to weaken the U.S., but of course they do have a big navy left behind. But if we go for those 2 Pacific Coalition ships out there in the middle of the ocean, hopefully we can knock those out and just not have to deal with an extra 2 Pacific Coalition warships helping out the Americans soak up hits. So to combat those guys, we're going to take 2 cruise missiles and fire them. And you know, I think this sub here will sit in the South Pacific and then fire its cruise missile, because it has to move first. Once it fires, it can't move anymore. And this submarine here, I think, will go... we're probably going to be in range of helicopters just about anywhere we go. So we'll probably leave him there because he's central, and we'll fire a cruise missile on those ships. Alright, so I guess that is it for Chinese attacks. Getting into the Russians, since we're still over here in the Pacific, we'll just finish out with them. So, first up, we have this Russian submarine here, who is going to go one into the Gulf of Alaska. He's going to help out the Chinese by firing a cruise missile. I'm trying to think. Maybe we'll have the Russians target the forward U.S. task force. So this Russian sub is going to come 1-2 to Wake Island. He is going to fire cruise missile. And then this guy here, like I said, will fire his cruise missile into that sea zone. And it also looks that we have blocked sea lift capacity. The U.S. won't be able to move move any sea lift into Asia because of our submarines, which now block the entirety of the ocean. Okay, next up, these Russian warships are going to come down, just move one space. They're not only going to help out with the naval battle, but also seek some protection there with the Chinese fleet, which can help defend them against the big American fleet, because sea zones in this game are a lot smaller, and the U.S. can turn one just come back to Japan if they want to. So it's very important that we help defend it at all costs. All right, so that is it for the Asiatic theater. Coming over to, let's do the Caliphate. Now, the Caliphate presents a difficult power to play because of the fact that they have a small economy, but one of the largest spanning domains of all the different nations. They border the Pacific Coalition, they border the NATO faction, and their North African possessions are within easy reach of American landings. So definitely the big threat is Israel, and I'm going to show them on the blow-up box because, like I said, they represent a huge threat. They have nuclear capabilities, they have a lot of infantry, an MBT, a fighter, and that little chip you see in the middle of the infantry and tank is an atomic demolitions marker, or bomb, which basically is a landmine that will help them out in their defense. So, with the Caliphate, I definitely want to keep this border defended so those infantry won't be able to help anywhere. But like I said, we want to take out Israel and maybe even try to go for the South African coalition because, or maybe save that for later. Because one thing I definitely think is that with the South African coalition, you're going to want to try to cripple that territory because the Pacific Coalition will have another point of access. But if you can't align the Eastern African states on turn one, you might want to stay away from it. I think I have tried it, and you can take that territory by just blasting through the East African states and onto South Africa. But it's really going to dice up your Israel attack, and since you don't have a lot of units in total, you're going to lose a lot and probably not do too well. Although we could try it, and you know what? Just because of this series being a little short, I will try it, and we will see how big the Caliphate can get turn one. So we're going to take this MBT here and this fighter. They're going to be the ones blitzing into South Africa if they can make it. This one infantry from Somalia, and I guess I'll take another one, are also going to come in as bullet sponges, leaving the Egyptians up here and the Saudis primed to take Israel. Alright, and in this game too, combat, there are ways to modify it, but combat lasts only 3 rounds total. So, say for this instance here, the Caliphate has 3 combat rounds to get 2 territories taken out. So they're going to have to quickly take out the East African states and then move into South Africa and have enough combat rounds left to take them out. Next up, we're going to take this this frigate. We're going to come 1, 2, and fight that South African ship to try and take it out and limit the Pacific Coalition's fleet strength around the world. Alright, so getting into our attack on Israel, the big one. So we have set up our drone marker here, and we did get military intel to hopefully help us out. So I'm going to grab a task force card. This is something I learned from Hambone, and it's a really nice way of doing things. So we'll have our attackers coming in from the south. We have 1 MBT that's driving from into Saudi Arabia or the Central Caliphate and into Israel. We have a Saudi M1 Abrams driving in. We have the entire Syrian and Saudi military walking in. You know what? We're going to leave an infantry behind just to defend that territory from any Turkish invasion. Check that out there. Alright, we have a fighter coming in, and we have a helicopter coming from this LHD into this territory. Lastly, we've got our 2 Egyptian soldiers marching in. You know what, we'll leave 1 behind again. We've got a decent amount of infantry if this doesn't go bad, and our drone will assist the fighter. And then, lastly, we do have an air base here, so we could fire a cruise missile at either this U.S. task force or Israel. And I am going to choose Israel just to help us out on the ground invasion. So we'll fire this cruise missile into Israel. And as the Americans, I'm going to scramble this jet fighter into the adjacent into the adjacent land zone, as they can do that with either sea or land zones. So he'll be coming in to help out the defense of Israel. And we'll set that up on a battle board. Or actually, I'm probably going to do these combats off screen just to save some time for you guys. So that is all the Caliphate attacks across the world, as they don't have a huge theater to operate in. Next up, we have the Russian assault on Europe. Alright. So, with the Russians, they definitely have a lot of units, but they don't want to overextend themselves too quickly. So I guess, first up, we will, my plan is with the Russians is to basically kind of slowly push. NATO's going to have the chance to build up a bit more, but at the same time, the Russians can also build up and they won't overextend their supply paths. The dangerous thing I'm doing this turn is I'm going to be attacking Germany with my MBTs, if I can crack through Central Europe, hopefully to just weaken that a little bit. Alright, so I guess first up, we're going to be going into Central Europe. There's only 3 infantry here. We're coming in with 4 MBTs from Ukraine, another 3 from the Baltic states. That's 7 MBTs total. Helicopter from the neighboring sea zone. All of the infantry from the Baltic states are coming in. Then the Balkans down here represent a pretty big threat, and we'll try to weaken them. We'll try to thin them out. So I guess first up we've got this drone, which will come in from the sea zone to help out one of our tanks. And then in the Balkans, we've got a drone from the Ukraine, which will support a jet fighter, helicopter, which is coming in, and we will send in 1, 2, 3, 4 infantry to try and soften up that territory. Hopefully take out that MBT with that helicopter. That would be nice. Next up, we've got an attack on Turkey. So another 3 units coming in from over here in the Caucasus. We've got an MBT and 2 infantry, supported by a cruise missile fired from this submarine here. Hopefully taking that territory out. And then up north, I'm debating on taking Scandinavia, because the issue with that is it's really overextending my forces. But I think that we can always build up with the money that we get this turn, so we're probably just going to go for it. So Scandinavia has only 2 infantry here, so we'll be coming in with the drone that will support, let's see, these are on the Baltic states. So this jet fighter is going to go 1-2, be supported by the drone. Helicopter is going to come in, along with 2 infantry. And then this LHD right here, these 2 infantry from Moscow are going to come 1, or actually they can't do 2. So they're going to go, let's see. I think that I'm going to take just this airborne. He's going to fly 1-2 into Denmark, try to take out that 1 infantry there. And we're going to send in the helicopter 1-2 to Denmark to help him out. If we can close off Denmark, the British are going to have to take that place back before they can move naval units through. As you can see, we are pretty sparsely defended, but hopefully we put such a big strike on the Allies that they won't be able to take it much back next turn. Alright, and then down here, actually, let's try to get the Atlantic into play. So that minor navy that you saw in the Baltic states, they are going to sail out. Oops. So that's going to be a frigate and guided missile destroyer, along with, I think that this helicopter from the Baltics is going to come into this sea zone also to help out with that, as NATO is going to scramble this jet fighter to help out their fleet. Oh, you know, actually, now that I look at it, they could scramble this fighter from the carrier, so I'm not sure if I want to devote all this to that attack. You know, I think that I'm going to cancel my attack on Scandinavia, so we'll just show you that there. So with Scandinavia, these forces won't be moving in. The fighter from the Baltics is going to go 1-2 to help out this fleet. This is probably a suicide action, but I want to try to thin out the Allied fleets before they get, you know, more and more strong. This drone, which came from the Baltics, is going to probably just have to stay there, as it's probably not going to end up doing anything, and we're just going to have to defend this line. And yeah, alright, so then getting down into the Atlantic, we have these 2 subs that we're given. First off, we're going to move them like this. That way they're blocking sea lift to Central Europe, and to defend our holdings, or defend our gains that we will hopefully make on the UK fleet, we're going to also bombard these ships here. We're going to leave the Americans in safety, because I want to try to cripple the NATO faction's ability to help support the US. So cruise missiles will be flying in, hopefully target selecting that super carrier. We'll have to see. But, oh, and as NATO, I'm going to scramble this jet fighter from the super carrier to the battle up north. And now that I look at it again, and as NATO too, I'm going to leave the fighter in Germany. He could scramble out, but I want him saved for the battle for Germany on land. All right, and down south now, I did forget to add the Russian frigate here. This is a Caliphate one, but we're gonna pretend he's Russian for this turn. He is gonna come. He's gonna go. So he has a naval base. 1, 2, 3. I think that we'll bring him... We're going to bring him right here, just because he'll just be another blocker for the US to have to fight to get up there. And I think that will be all for combats. So, I will get back to you when these combats are resolved and tell you how they went down. Alright, so it is now the end of round 1, or the combat phase of round 1, and there's been very mixed results between all of the different nations and some victories and failings in each of their offensives that they made. So, first up, we'll start with their most successful frontier, the Pacific Theater. So the Chinese did very well. The Russians, or the cruise missile attacks, were 50-50. The Russians were able to take out a frigate with the Americans, and the Chinese were able to take out a frigate down there in the Central Pacific. Getting into the main show, the Chinese blasted through the Japanese and with their superior air power and took Japan, sustaining an airborne and a tank as casualties. So, you know, one thing that I would think about is probably, I wanted the tanks for the firepower, but I'd probably just bring in 2 infantry, considering that there's so much air power coming in to hit all of those land units that they have. So, and then it doesn't cost you any tanks moving in there. The battle for Okinawa went well. No casualties were sustained, and if they were, I probably would have taken it on like the helicopter. I don't know. I make sacrifices such as that, which don't seem that great, but the fact that now the entire Sea of Japan has no way of reinforcements is very nice. Plus, now that I think about it, I've nearly blocked all sea lift to the Americans. I was going to say I have, but the Central Pacific ships there have, as I can see here, you can see that the Americans can supply Taiwan still, but the fact that Sea of Japan is now gone, there's no resistance, I can focus on places like Taiwan. North Korea, nothing really happened there. Like I said, those were the only 2 attacks that really happened. The anti-ship ballistic missile attack on the Indian fleet was failed. One thing I will point out is, we can see with Europe, there is the NATO casualties. While the Russians did very well in Europe, as you can see here, they are very weak in terms of, like, you know, even against like airborne assaults. You know, the Indians have 1 airborne over there, but there's not much of a defense, so they could land in one of these nuclear territories and try to take out those ICBMs, but they don't have a ton of forces to do so, so we probably won't see any of that happen. But getting into Europe, so it was good and bad. You can see in attacks on Turkey, went pretty well. We sustained 2 casualties, but keeping that tank and capping that territory was definitely good. The Balkan states we've come to in force. They would have to launch an attack with their Italians and Greeks, which would definitely soften up those territories. So it's nice that we have a couple infantry left over and that helicopter. And then Germany and Poland got diced bad. They got hardly, I think, 3 hits total, and those were taken on the MBTs at the end of the German fight. But they blasted through Central Europe, took out Germany. An airborne assault on Denmark. I ended up losing a helicopter too, to just take that territory. And because of the fact that you can see over here, the naval battle didn't go... I mean, it probably went as well as it could have gone, considering I had 2 combat warships, a helicopter, and a fighter jet. So, and the fact that I still have a guided missile destroyer from it is pretty nice. The only issue is that you can see the fleet over there is unaffected. The cruise missile strikes from those submarines did nothing against it. The one success that I got, though, is the fact that the jet fighter from that carrier was scrambled and it was destroyed in combat. So now the British Isles are looking pretty weak, as I think I took out 2 jet fighters in that battle, plus the one in Germany. So huge hit to NATO. And the fact that I still have a LHD down here is pretty nice, because the British aren't going to be able to come back in there. They could send their fighter jet from France. One, two, yeah. And maybe their helicopter, but that would definitely be a costly battle, considering that they're going to probably lose a jet fighter or two out of it, attacking mine with a drone as a reroll. Another thing, so I guess getting into the Caliphate, one thing is that the frigate that I moved up here just to kind of be a little token defense to the British now. You know, they can take out that guided missile destroyer, which is definitely what they should do, but that frigate's just going to be able to sit there if it's not taken out. The Americans might have to use resources coming up to get it. Yeah. Although, what I probably would have done with that, and a smart move with that, would be coming down here to South Africa. I think, so the Caliphate took Israel with probably as good odds as they could have. I think they came out of it with 1 MBT and 2 infantry destroyed, and you can see they were left with 3 infantry, an MBT, and they still have their fighter and attack helicopter. But the worst battle that happened this turn was in Africa, where as you saw with the combat moves, the Caliphate moved in, and it took them 3 rounds to kill 1 infantry, and they sustained 2 infantry casualties. And so now the East African states are worth 2 IPCs. They go to the Pacific Coalition, and now I was trying to take out the East African states and take out the South African Coalition, but now the South Africans have a pretty decent foothold in Africa with some extra IPCs, and they still have their fleet. I sent my frigate down. It did not kill their frigate, so they even have their little navy down there too. I probably would have taken that Russian frigate from up top and sent him down to help out and destroy that one, but that was not, I moved him up instead of down. But overall, that is what happened in turn 1. And I guess we'll just get to some purchases and non-combat movement. So over here in the Pacific Theater, I definitely, like I said, going more fleet-centric, so I want to defend my land territories as good as I can because not many supplies will be... I'm not going to be funding my land army too much. So, North Korea, we are going to leave everything that starts there, but we're going to take the MBT out of North Korea, and we are going to, what is it called? We are going to drive him 1-2 into East China. We're going to actually help out the Russians by taking one of our infantry, and we're going to sea lift him from this port, 6 spaces, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, off the map, through the Panama Canal, 5, and then 6 into Venezuela. Let me see if that lines up right. I know you guys can't see it, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, he can't make it there. Alright. Well, he's gonna have to stay there. I was hoping that I could help out, but I guess not. So, next up, so I guess we can use our sea lift though. We'll be taking one of our MBTs from Manchuria. He's gonna sea lift all the way down here to Southeast Asia. This tank is gonna drive 1-2 to South China. We're gonna leave 2 infantry to defend Manchuria, taking 3 that will be moving around. So, I guess infantry can move 2 in non-combat. So, that does give us some options to kind of move these guys around as we see fit. Let's grab some infantry. So, the guys that are over here in Xinjiang, they can be moved and help us defend other territories. So basically, we'll take these guys, we're going to move them 1-2 to Southeast Asia. We are going to then take, so one of our guys from Manchuria is going to go and help out. Actually, we're going to send 2 into, we're going to send 2 into North Korea. One of them into Zhangchang to help keep that defended. And let's see. One of our fighter jets that came 1, 2, 3, he would have had to land there, so I guess, yeah, all of our aircraft can't move. Alright, I think that's just about it. 1, 2, 3. We're gonna move one more guy from Manchuria to Xinjiang just to defend it from that Indian airborne. And then getting into the Chinese placement, we are going to place 2 fresh frigates into the Sea of Japan using the naval bases provided to us. We have 2 new airborne. They are going to be landing. You know, now that I think about it, those jets are going to land. One of them is going to land here. It's just to defend against strikes made by the Indians. But these guys, we have 9 building points down there, so we'll build 2 of our airborne there. And we have another 4 infantry. One's going to get placed on Hainan Island because it's undefended. 1 more in Xinjiang just because. Another guy in Manchuria. And we'll do 1 in Southeast Asia just to keep that under wraps. Alright, getting into Russia. The Russians sustained pretty heavy casualties, so we're going to have to shore up their defenses now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our fighter that helped out in the Balkan states is going to go 1, or he has that air base, so he went 1, and then he's going to go 2, 3, 4, 5 to help defend southern Ukraine. Now, underneath all of our casualties here, this is worth a victory star. So our Moscow infantry is going to move back to, we're going to take a Siberian infantry to help defend that. And like I said, these are all casualties, so we don't have to worry about them. I did do some non-combats, like with this fighter coming back here. I debated on leaving the LHD outside, but I decided to keep him in, keep him safe. And I think that's just about it. That British airborne can't get through to Moscow because we have a fighter there, which he can't travel past. So I think that that's just about it. All of our nuclear territories are decently defended. I guess we do have these 2 infantry here, but that guy could go 1, 2, 3, yeah, so he can't make it too far. So those Ukrainians will move, I guess we'll have 1 go 1, 2 up to northern Russia, and the last guy in the Ukraine there will go, let's see, let's move him. We'll move him to the Caucasus, and then 1 guy from the Caucasus will move 1, 2 to help defend over there. I think that is just about it. You know, now that I think about it, the fighter over here, so he's going to land in the Ukraine, but we're going to use our strategic rail. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, if you can move, I think that you can move a fighter after it's like moved around. But if not, he would land in southern Yakutia, and if so, he's going to rail from his landing zone in the Ukraine all the way to Amur to help prevent any airborne assaults. Alright, and to place units, we have, let's see this. We've got another fighter, which is going to come in over here. I'll get a flight stand for him. Up here in northern Russia, we have another MBT. He'll be going into the Ukraine. And 2 more infantry, 1 into Kazakhstan. And the last guy is going to go into the Baltic states to hopefully keep, you know, we'll put them up north to try to maybe push that line into Scandinavia. Alright, and then lastly, with the Caliphate, they are as set up as I would like them to be for now, like as is possible. So with their placements, We're going to go with an airborne in a central location in Saudi Arabia. And then we have 4 infantry, so we'll do 1 in Somalia and the rest in Iran, Pakistan, just to help defend that border, which is a weak one. You know, we'll take... Yeah, we need the defenses there. India could launch an assault into there. So that is it. That is round 1 done. The Eastern Pact, and overall it was pretty interesting. A lot has happened, and we'll see what happens and how the Western allies decide to counter it next turn.